Hi there, Julie here. In today's video, I'm going to create a double page layout inspired by my very first onstage experience with Stampin' Up. Now, I wanted to focus on one of the resources that we received on stage. This is called After Hours, and this booklet is full of beautiful cards and scrapbooking ideas. So when I was going through it, I stopped on page 16. Now, if you have this booklet, that's going to be my jumping off point. I'm going to create a double page layout from that single page, and I'm going to further challenge myself to use some new products or upcoming products. Let's see if I can do this here. Ta-da! These are the new colors. These are the in colors for 2025-2027. I'm going to use all of these colors on that layout, and I'm going to use the help of this stamp set right here. This stamp set is also a new product, and this was also one of the resources that we received at OnStage. So I'm going to bring in all of those colors into these flowers, and we're going to create a really pretty double page layout together. So at this point in my flower production, I've got all of my flowers done. These ones here are done with the double stamping, and I've got a few here on my sticky mat because I want to do some ink blending, but I wanted to show you where I got these. If you know the Stampin' Up dies, they often come with extra pieces, and this is them right here. You've got this larger one and a double one. You have stems, you have leaves, solid leaves, and then you have these images. So these are the images that I've been using. So this is what I've been using for this one, minus the centerpiece. I've been die cutting all of my flowers, and I've been using this die to work with the stamp and not so much this piece right here. And this one, when you cut them together on a colored cardstock, you don't have to use a colored cardstock, but I think that it works best with that. You get an impression of the flower, but I think that needs to be a separate video. For today, I'm going to concentrate on this type. So you've got two types of flowers that you can create with this set, but you also have these standalone pieces. Now, if you're familiar with Stampin' Up, you will notice that when I showed you the in colors, there's one missing. It is called Cloud Cover, and it's not quite ready yet. They had issues with the production of it, and they decided to hold it back until it was perfect. So I completely respect that, but I still want to play with that color. So I'm going to bring in an old friend. Mist is really close to Cloud Cover, I think. Without having the actual ink pad with me, I think that this one here can substitute, because I do want to use all 5 colors, even though the Cloud Cover is still on its way, and I'm okay with that. So we're going to use this one here. I'm going to move these out of the way. I want to introduce that color for that 5th color that we are used to seeing, and I am going to make sure that my pieces are nice and pushed into my mat. And I'm going to bring that in to these ones here. Very much like the Stampin' Up ink, this will dry back and will have a close color to the Cloud Cover that is coming soon. So I have these, and when I throw them in here, you can see that I now have the beginning of using all of the in colors. I just have to use this one, and I think I'm going to use that sparely with cardstock probably, and definitely, do you see these tiny little flowers? I think they would look really pretty cut out of the darkest shade. So I'm going to clean this up, and we're going to go through the paper selection and the photo selection to make this layout come together. Let's talk about my photos for this double page layout. Now, I decided to use, of course, photos from the OnStage event. How fitting, right? Because the artwork inspiration came from that. This is a photo of myself and Natalie. She's my downline. We were walking down the street and we came across this little coffee shop, and it was Pie Day, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was. But this sign read, "You're an adult, you can eat the cake and an Irish coffee for dinner." Now, it wasn't our dinner, but it was definitely our dessert. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and scrapbook these photos. So we have one photo here, and this is Chelsea, and you can see why I was kind of excited to use that new strawberry slush, because her jacket is perfect for that. In the original layout, I believe they are 3x4s, and I decided to bump them up to 4x6 because I knew I wanted to do a double page spread. On this side here, we have a picture of all three of us, and then yes, we had Irish coffee for our dessert with our pies, and they were fantastic. So I'm going to do something like this on this double page layout. Now let's bring in some papers, because at this point in the game I don't have a lot of the new papers, but I did have this really pretty stamp set and I had some of the colors, so I thought that I could mix old and new. For my paper selection, I decided I was going to try and use the Floral Delight, and I'm going to tell you why. When I was looking at this collection, and it's quite yellow, but I also was inspired by Darling Duckling, and I know that it's not the same yellow. It's definitely, this one is more green if you want, and the yellow that is in here is Daffodil Delight, so it's a little bit more warm, and this one's a little cooler. But when I was looking through the papers that I had, I felt that this pattern in particular would go because it is a very small print, and this here is black, but it really reminded me of Secret Sea. So that's how I landed on this paper, even though when you look at this paper collection, it is really busy, like lots of greens, lots of yellow, and even more yellow and beautiful flowers on the other side. Now, I didn't want to bring in these flowers only because I also want to use the Timid Tiger and the Strawberry Slush, so I have to eliminate some of the colors to make all of these work. So let's go back to my original thought, which was to use this one. And then when I was going through this paper pack, I noticed that they have this one, which is a really nice neutral, and there's a lot of wood grain because I took close-up of our Irish coffee and our pies. I think that this will make a good combination. So let me just remove all of these, and we'll talk about this one in just a moment. But let me remove all of that. Let's take a look at the photos. So I am going to sneak this underneath just for you to kind of appreciate where my thought process was going. Let's look at the photos against this paper, and because I've got this wood grain on the table and, you know, this really nice caramel on my piece of pie, I do like this brown. I know that I want to bring in all of these colors, so this complements Chelsea's jacket. The blues are complementing kind of like the grays that are in this photo. I have orange, and it's not fighting with the brown tone of my photos. It actually complements here. So I think that this is going to work. So let me cut this down. I'm going to prepare my base pages, and we are going to start adding these flowers to embellish our page. Before I cut into these papers, remember I told you I was going to bring in some of that darkest blue if you want, or it's a really dark shade. It's called Secret Sea. And again, I don't have the 12x12 sheets yet, but I do have something that might fit the bill. Let's bring in a color. This is a retired color from Close to My Heart. It is called Outdoor Denim. And when I bring the Secret Sea close to it, I think it's going to fit the bill. This is actually a piece of cardstock from Stampin' Up, And when I put them together, they are very darn close. So I thought, you know what? I can go ahead and I can introduce Secret C on my layout, even though I don't have the 12 by 12 sheets just yet. If I look at the inspirational piece on page 16 from the After Hour booklet, the first thing you'll notice is that 1, I have 2 pages, and 2, I added this frame. So this frame was put in because I know that I want to bring in all of the in colors, and I didn't really want to do these dark flowers. I think these flowers are really pretty as is. I wanted to introduce that color, and I wanted to show you that when you're looking at these colors, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to imagine them all living on one page, but I'm here to show you that it can totally be done. I'm going to use this one as my neutral, as my black if you want. That's where I have my frame. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to mat all of my photos. So here I have a double mat. I have a skinny little mat done in white. And then I've gone ahead and I've done a double mat in that same color. So this really works well, and it translates itself as a black, but it's a little bit softer, so it's a softer touch. I'm going to go ahead and do my inside pieces with a pattern paper, and then we'll be able to add these flowers. Let's bring in the pattern paper that I want to use for this layout, and this is going to be a square frame inside with a diagonal cut. Now when you do a diagonal cut on pattern paper, you have to be careful because this one here definitely has a direction and it has a diagonal. You don't need to use that. It just so happened that that was the paper that I selected. If it's your first time, you may want to use a pattern paper that doesn't have a direction. And I'll show you why in just a moment. Let me cut these down to size. So my first thing that I'm doing here is I'm cutting that down to the full size of the square I want to end up with. So we're going to do that for both. And then you're going to end up slicing them on a diagonal, and you'll be able to use them on both sides for this double page layout. Let's move this over for one moment. So I have 2 pieces now, and I want to cut it on an angle. I want to cut it clear across. So I'm going to cut that in the middle. I'm going to bring back my paper trimmer, and it doesn't fit. So what do you do when that happens, when it doesn't fit? Now I could finagle something and make it work, but I have one chance at cutting this, so I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to use my mat. If you have a mat that has a diagonal line, it is probably the best tool to use when you want to do a diagonal cut. This is a Close to My Heart mat, and coming from Close to My Heart, I still have them and I still love them. And this is where they come in super handy. And I want to show you very quickly, when I put this piece down, I know that I'm going to cut it this way, but if I was to turn it and I would cut it across, my diagonals would be different. So you have to decide which side you want them in. And this is only because I chose a pattern that had a diagonal line. So I'm going to put this here right in the corner. And I can just lay my ruler down and cut that. And you know what? If someone's looking to invest in an 18-inch ruler, I'm telling you, this is great. I love this ruler. I don't take it out a lot, but do you see here, if I had a full 12 by 12 piece, I could absolutely cut it in one go. Now you can line up your rulers. You can do a whole bunch of fun things. For me, I like to simplify things. And this is not an expensive ruler, but it works beautifully. So I'm going to line that up on my 45-degree line. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and I am just going to gently cut that. So here I have my 2 pieces, and you know what? I didn't even line that up perfectly. Sometimes when I'm doing a video, I don't try and keep my head out of the shot. So this is a little bit off, but I'm not going to fret about it because I know I have a photo going right here. I'm going to lay down my 18-inch ruler, make sure that it's nice and straight. And we are going to give this a cut. So we have our pieces. Let me move all that out of the way. And we're going to continue building our foundation pages. So I'm going to stick this back down. I do use a little bit of glue at the top so things don't move around too much. So you have, I guess, a few decisions to make when you're putting this together. Do you want the dark color in the center, or do you want the dark color on the top, or do you want a different pattern altogether? For me, what looks better, like I find that this here is too top heavy, so I'm going to bring these down and I'm going to put them at the bottom. Now these are going to go right here in the center of my page. And I think to make them stand out a little bit more, that's not right. Let's go this way. Here we go. Before I attach these two pieces to my foundation page, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of ink distressing on the edges. I think that it's going to make this pop out and still introduce this color. When I do my distressing, kind of go on the edge and I just lightly touch it. I don't want to have a whole lot of it. I just want to create a small visual separation between this color, because they're very similar. So I'm kind of going on an angle and I'm angling down as opposed to angling up. Now, if you want a very distressed look, definitely you can angle up and that's what you will get, but that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm not looking for also is a separation of this color in the center. Like I want this to kind of look like one piece, but I want the outside to be separated. So I want the outer square to stand out, but not so much that angle piece or that angle cut. I want it to look like it was one piece of paper that I got to put on my foundation page. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to adhere these down. We're going to lay out our photo mats and we're going to start adding our flower clusters. Let's finish this layout together. I have my foundation pages. They're done. They're all glued down. I've got my photos. They are all matted. So it's just a case of tacking them down. So I'm going to adhere these down and then we're going to do the embellishing. And definitely for me, that is the fun part. This one here, I've got my two photos and then I'm going to cross over. I'm adding the adhesive in the center of my photo because I know that I'm going to add some flowers. So I'm going to add some here and here. And this photo, I actually took this a little close, but it's still going to work. I want it on an angle. I want it to be tilted and I want this one to tilt up. I usually place all of my photos pretty straight, but I thought, why not? Let's try something a little different. So that looks good. The only one that needs to be straight is this one. We have the beginning of a really pretty page, but now comes the fun part where we're going to bring it all together. Let's start our clusters. I'm going to start with the biggest flower, which is the pink one in this case. And you'll see that I don't have an uneven number. Usually I do 3s, but for whatever reason this worked better. It seemed to work better. So let's see if we can kind of play around with them. I was spinning that flower to make it fit. What I'm trying to do here is to join my cluster where my photo is to create a little shelf, but I also don't want to distract from the photo and this little rose that's in here. So we're going to add another one on this side. And if you stick around till the end, I'm going to admit that I cheated a little bit with my challenge, but maybe you can see it. If you can, let me know in the comment if you figured it out before I said anything. And if not, you're going to have to stick around and see where I ended up cheating in this challenge that I created for myself. So you can see here that I've got a little bit of a swag going. Now for my larger flowers, this is where I'm going to bring in the little leaves. And I think I mentioned this earlier on when I was going through my paper collection. So let me bring that back in very quickly. So this again is the Floral Delight. And I basically picked the green. I contemplated cutting my little leaves out of this color, or out of this paper, I should say. But I took my cue from this paper collection and I drew out the Old Olive. So these are all done in Old Olive. And I am going to basically put two together. I'm using my tweezers so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to add two down here. And we're going to add two more. I could add leaves everywhere, but then it's going to be a little bit too distracting. So I'm going to lift this one and add two here. And I am going to repeat that for this one. And I think I'm just going to add two for this one. I don't want to have too many of these little pieces, but it's hard not to get carried away. Okay, so I have a little bit of a gap in the center. If you remember at the beginning, I wanted to introduce the cloud cover, but I don't have it in the ink. And I did ink these guys in cloud cover and it was a little bit too green for me. So I went back at the very bottom and I added a little bit of the Secret Sea, and I really like the color of them now. I feel that they're going to pick up on the frame and we'll see how that goes. And I'm basically tucking these underneath. Maybe I'll have to move all of these a little closer. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I think I can make it work. So let me see here. If I move this one here, building flower clusters can take some time. Especially if you have smaller pieces that you're trying to negotiate, but I think it's worth it. So we're going to add one more up here, and we're going to add one more down here. Something like that. I do like the flow of it. It's very cheerful. They're really supporting my photos. So I'm going to repeat kind of the same thing on this side. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to start again with the two large ones. And this one here is probably going to be more on a straight line. So I am moving them around so that they're not in the same direction. But I'm going to add these two. I think I'm going to try and add them in the center. So like so, even if I'm hiding some of this photo, I think it's okay. And I really had to blur out these two ladies in the background. They were having such a serious discussion and their faces were not happy faces. So I thought I would blur them out and keep their privacy and keep us here in the forefront because we were having a grand old time. Now let me add a few of the yellow ones. I think I'm going to add one here. So you saw that I started with the biggest flower and then I went to the medium, and now I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put these small ones. I know I can go on my photo, but I don't want to go too far down on my photo. So maybe I'll pull these ones up a tiny little bit, and then I'll repeat that same thing where I'm going to add these ones kind of nestled into the center to fill in the gaps. And the gaps are a little bit different here because I'm not going in an arc, I'm going more straight. Although I have the same flowers or the same quantities, they are placed a little bit different because here I had a little bit of an arc. Here I'm going clear across. So I'm going to add this one, probably something like that. And then we're going to sneak in a few of those leaves. And we're going to do the same thing or similar to up here or maybe on the side. we're going to add 2 more here and 2 more at the bottom. We're going to add 2 more here. Now I'm definitely going to fuss with these and, you know, maybe spread them out a little bit, but this is the beginning of a very good cluster. Now I have to finish this whole look with a title and some journaling. I went ahead and I created this title on my Cricut, and I think it's going to fit really nicely here. Even if, again, I'm hiding a little bit of the photo, I think that that's okay. So I did a print and cut. I will list my friend Erin's video. She explains very, very well how to do a print and cut with your Cricut, and I often forget how to do it, and I always refer back to her very useful videos. So I have a few more flowers up here, and I thought, why not? Let's tuck some right here to highlight even more my title. I really like how these strawberry slush pops against those colors. I've got, you know, just a little trio of flowers. That's how I usually start. Whatever amount of flowers I have on my stamp set, I try to incorporate all of them because they are so darn cute. I'm going to add a few of those little green leaves. I think that this can go down. I like that it's kind of going down into the title. Something like that. I might add a few more, but this gives you a really good visual, and then I can add these little guys. I really like how that frames my title. I've got my cluster of flowers that is running across the page, drawing your eye on this now double page layout. We're going to finish it all off with a little bit of journaling. There's a great little spot here for it, and I did this on my computer. I cut it out of this great die set. This is the Textured Notes die, and I use this one right here. I love the little detail that you get when you cut from these, and I think that it lends itself to this page. If you like to do little journaling strips, this one would work well. I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of my flowers down, and we might add a little bit of bling, and if you haven't figured it out by now, I will reveal my little cheat that I did based on the challenge that I gave myself. So let me get busy. I'll be right back. We are almost done here, and if you want to see where it all started, for those of you who attended on stage and participated in the after hour event, check out layout on page 16 and you will see that that was my jumping off point, but of course I made it my own, created a double page layout, changed up some of the colors, and challenged myself to add all of the new in colors. Speaking of the in colors, I'm going to add a few gems here, and by now you're probably still wondering, what was my cheat? Have you figured it out? Because it's not a big change, but I did kind of cheat if you want. So I'm going to look at these here, and I think I want to concentrate on the Secret Sea color. I think that that's going to be the perfect add-on. I'm just going to add a few here and there. I love that they are in multiple sizes. And we're just going to add a little cluster of 3 here to accentuate my title. And I think I'm going to add, I don't want to add too much. I don't want to draw away from it. I think I'm just going to add another little cluster of 3 right here by my journaling. I'm going to add this one down here, and I'm going to keep the rest of these because I know I'm going to have fun with them. I like the way these just highlight the title and my journaling spot right here. Did you figure it out? Were you able to point out where I cheated on my challenge? When I was pulling out these papers here, and at the beginning I told you that I was inspired by the new in color, which is Darling Duckling. But the yellow in this paper collection is Daffodil Delight, and it's a little bit warmer. This one here is a little bit cooler. I had gone ahead and I had stamped all of my flowers, and they didn't quite look right for me. Let me bring this up so that you can see. So you've got this one here. I think this will be the better comparison. There's not much difference between the two yellow, but that was my cheat. I decided to redo my little flowers in the Daffodil Delight. I found that they were cheerful and a little bit warmer, which went with the paper that I selected. I just wanted to share with you that even though I challenged myself to use all of the new in colors, I kind of preferred this one, and it's totally okay to mix up the new supplies that you are going to have with the supplies that you have in your crafty space. Let's take one last look at all of the details. So you've got those pretty flowers, you have the titles. I think the little gems here really frame my title nicely. I love the cluster of flowers, and it continues on to the other side. You've got these bright flowers against a pretty neutral palette when you look at it. I love that I was able to add my journaling and use that die. This has been in my collection for a little while, and I think I'm going to use it quite a bit. Well, that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video and reminded you to go back and check out some of the materials we've received at our on-stage event. This layout was completely inspired by a layout that was in the After Hour booklet. It is on page 16. Unfortunately, I can't show you that. It is exclusive content, but for some of you, check out page 16, and this is where I drew my inspiration to complete this double page layout. Have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.